When the Baker Commission filed its report saying peace in Israel is related to Iraq, you may, I was the first and only person in the Congress to point out, if tomorrow peace broke out in between Israelis and Palestinians, does anybody think there wouldn't be a full-blown war in Iraq?
You're pro-Israel. Why would you want peace in Israel? Why would you want peace between Israelis and Palestinians? Palestinians are losing it all. You're taking their land, you're taking their money, you're taking their rights, you're taking their families. I mean, we don't want to have peace break out in Israel, for God's sakes. We don't want to have any peace in Israel. I mean, this guy that you're saying this to, he's pro-Israel. He doesn't want peace in Israel. You guys want to have endless war in Israel and everywhere else in the Middle East. I mean, if you could start more endless wars, you'll do that too. But you definitely want endless war in Israel between the Israelis and the Palestinians because, I mean, my God, you're taking it all away from them. You know, just keep smashing Palestinians in the face and keep doing what you're doing, keep breaking the law, keep having your way with them, keep treating them like subhuman garbage. You know, you want to keep smashing these brown people, Joe Biden. People have to vote for you to prove that they're not racists, especially if they're white people. How do you prove that you're not a racist if you're a white person? Ignore the foreign policy and vote for Joe Biden.
And conversely, if Iraq were transported to Mars, does anyone think there would not be the terrorism visited upon the Israelis every day?
What are you talking about? You just got done saying and making the connection between Iraq and Israel. You just got done saying that if peace broke out in Israel, there'd be a full-scale war in Iraq. Now you're saying that, well, you take Iraq, just send them to Mars, and it's still not, it doesn't matter. It's not going to do anything, whether Iraq or not. And you're the only person in the Congress to point this out, Joe. You are a genius. I mean, no wonder Democrats have to vote for you to prove that they're not racist.
Israel is not the cause of Iraq. Iraq being settled or not settled has nothing to do with Israel's conduct.
What Iraq has to do with is your conduct, Joe. Yeah, don't worry about Israel when it comes to Iraq. We've got Iraq taken care of. We've got Iraq figured out. We got Iraq all buttoned up, all fixed up, nice and pretty for you. We'll keep Iraq away from you. Don't you worry about that. You doesn't have anything to do with your behavior. You do whatever you like. And how racist is that? We're going to keep smashing brown people so Israel can do whatever it wants. What Iraq has to do with is your behavior, Joe. You're the main cheerleader for the Iraq war. You're the first guy in the Senate to support war in Iraq. And you showed everybody the light.
I always say to my friends when they say those things to you, I say, imagine our circumstance in the world were there no Israel. How many battleships would there be? How many troops would be stationed?
He picks the one weapon that we're not even using anymore. We have 0 battleships in the Navy, and then thinking, oh, well, let me just find a weapon that we don't use anymore, and then I'll give Israel credit for that. Battleship! Found it. How many more battleships would we need to have other than 0? Well, we might need to have 4 or 8 or 12 or 16 or more battleships out there sailing around if there were no Israel. That's a good point, Joe.
The second part is people should understand by now, this should be crystal clear, that Israel is the single greatest strength America has in the Middle East. There is this inextricable tie between culture, religion, ethnicity that most people don't fully understand. That is unique and, how can I say it? So strong with Jews worldwide.
What about Iran, Joe? What about the Jews in Iran? You know, Iran has the largest Jewish population in the Middle East outside of Israel. What about those Jews? Are you close to those Jews too? Anybody ask those Jews what they think about the United States, what they think about U.S. foreign policy? Let's ask those Jews and see what they have to say. You don't speak for them. I don't think you would want to hear from them. You don't want to hear what the real Jews think of you, Joe. You don't want to hear what the Jews think of your foreign policy. You don't want to hear what the Jews in Iran think of, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You serve the interests of Israel. And in particular, you don't even serve the interests of the people of Israel. You serve the interests of the Israeli government. And if anybody's paying any attention to what's going on in Israel right now, there's a big difference between the Israeli government and the Israeli people. But we don't want to talk about that either. Nobody's going to put that on the news. You're not going to see that on Aaron Burnett. You're not going to see that on Sean Hannity. You're not going to see that on Rachel Maddow. These people all sing from the same hymn book when it comes to Israel. Well, look at that. Look at that. The Israeli protesters agree with me. They know it's not going to be televised. They know that this isn't going to show up in the U.S. media anywhere for Americans to see. Of course it's not. Of course it's not.
I mean, I used to say early on when I was a kid, I'd say, when I was a young senator, I'd say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist, but you do have to be a Zionist in order to be a Jew that you care about, Joe Biden. The same with every other election. You have been a lifetime politician, 47 years in service. Nobody has batted an eyelash about your positions on foreign policy, about how much of a warmonger you have been for the past 47 years in this country. You're not going to pay attention to those Orthodox Jews, those real Jews, those observant Jews that practice real Judaism in New York City. You don't want to pay attention to what they think. You don't want to pay attention to what they have to say about you and about your stupid foreign policy. No, that's not in your interests. You have to go pretend that Jews are somehow, they're these white European transplants, the 13th tribe of Kazakhstan, that are being imported into the Middle East to live on top of Palestinians in the West Bank. Those are the Jews that you're interested in. And as for any true anti-Jewish sentiments that might come by these videos, I just want to make something clear. Noam Chomsky is not the problem. Norman Finkelstein is not the problem. Max Blumenthal is not the problem. Adam Kokesh is not the problem. Kerry Wedler is not the problem. Rabbi Weiss is not the problem. We can go on and on. It's not the Jews that are the problem. If you think it is, you're eating the wolf tickets that Israel is shoving down your throat about this. The government of Israel is the one that can't stop talking about Jews and we're the Jewish homeland and we're going to be the like it's like Benjamin Netanyahu is the emperor of all Jews. And the Democrats do this shit with black people as well too. They make Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton the emperor of all black people. Like they don't have minds of their own and they're not they're not independent, sovereign individuals of independent thought and independent mind. That once one of their great leaders gets up on a podium and starts talking into a microphone, well, he's just speaking for all black people. No, he's not. And the government of Israel doesn't speak for all Jews. In fact, Jews are some of the most voracious opponents of Israel and of the Israeli government on the planet. So of course you don't want to pay attention to what real Jews say, because if you did, you would prove what a disgusting, lying piece of dirt you really are. And that goes for the entire mainstream media, that goes for both parties, that goes for every administration that we have had for as long as I've been alive. The only real reason that anybody would have, the only good reason anybody would have to be against a Jew at all, anywhere in the world, would be Israel, because they somehow associate Judaism or they associate world Jewry with Israel. Well, no, those two things have almost nothing to do with each other. And if you can't disassociate Jews from Israel, then you're the one that's buying the soap. You're the one that's buying the rhetoric from the government of Israel. You're the problem, Joe Biden. You are. You and all of your good buddies in Washington, D.C. That's who the problem is. You are a Zionist, Joe, and you're anti-Semitic as hell.